All right, my friends, so I just got off the horn with a guy, my man Rene. It's funny, his experience is kind of like mine, and it just shows you that sometimes when bad things happen, it can lead to much, much better things in the future. So Rene had some issues with his mortgage company back in the late 90s. First Union Bank, First Union, them of the advertisement which said, you don't need to go to the mountain, we'll bring the mountain to you. I'll never forget that in the late 90s. I always said, why do I want to work with a firm that's like a mountain? The idea was you don't need to go to Wall Street to get the best and the brightest of financial banks and institutions. They'll bring the mountain to you. The best in the bank, the best and the brightest are right there in your neighborhood. It's stupid. Just shows you a lot of these PR people don't know the freaking butt from a hole in the ground, that's for sure, because that was a dumb ad. That did not make me say, oh, I can't wait to go to First Union. I said, no, they seem like they don't want me. Anyway, so my man Rene was telling me with First Union Bank, they actually he was late on a payment. All right, so so the next time, so when he got the money to pay the payment, he was already in the second payment. All right, so he wasn't delinquent on the second payment, but he said, look, I'm going to make the payment. I'm just late on his first payment. Now I got to pay the second payment, so I'm just going to send the first payment, and I might be late for the second. They said, no, we want them both, or don't send anything. He's like, what? Long story short, they actually had an attorney write a letter to him, essentially saying, we're going to foreclose if you don't make payment, blah, blah, blah. And they billed Rene the attorney costs. So First Union was, basically taking legal action against this guy and making their own client pay the fees for the attorney. I mean, freaking just scumbags all around in this industry. It's nuts. And we bailed these scumbags out. It's crazy. So apparently, I guess there was some kind of class action or something like that where they said you can't do that. So he finally got his a couple $100 attorney fee refunded. That's not the point. The point is the bank, they don't give two craps. The whole thing was just absurd. You're sitting there thinking, dude, you know what you guys are doing. You're crooks. You're trying to take as much money as you can. You're not trying to work with anybody. I mean, of course, as of the 90s, everything's better now, right? No. Fast forward 10 years, and your old buddy Josh, I was telling him my own story about banks. So I put all my, I used to I've always had good credit because I saw someone in my family go bankrupt. And I never forget driving from DC back to Maine with this guy when he dropped me back off at my mom's house. And we're running low on gas, and we had to find a Shell. That was the only place I gave him credit. If we couldn't find a Shell, we had no way to get gas because he had no money. And I just remember sitting there worried as all could be that we're gonna be stuck in New York City without finding gas or something like that because he had no money. He had no credit, so he didn't have a credit card other than Shell. And I just remember it was like that. I was like, oh, dude, what? How come you don't have $20? You could go pay for gas with $20. We didn't have any money. And he had gone bankrupt, so the only place that offered him terms was Shell. And I mean, we'd be down to the freaking drops, and we finally found a Shell. Oh, just a nightmare. It's actually kind of funny because growing up, I used to have these huge, major stomach aches. I was actually listening to Bill Burr today, who was talking about he used to have these major stomach aches growing up too. And it's stress related. I didn't know that back then. I've come to learn that it's stress related, but it's funny. I never had them at school. I always had them when I'd go home after school. Just horrific stomach aches, just as like debilitating almost. And anyway, Bill Burr had those same things. Just turns out it's stress. I don't know if it's being a young boy. I don't know, but man, I used to have those like crazy. So I'd be sitting there just driving back to Maine. This guy and me, scared poopless that we're gonna run out of gas in a bad part of town. It's funny actually, my mom, and I'll tie this back. Don't worry, I haven't lost my train of thought, my friends. When I graduated high school, I showed you a picture of the car my mom used to have, this Ford Escort, this light blue. I think it was a two-door. I think it was a stick. I can't remember, but anyway, it was crappy, and she picked me up, took me back to Maine after graduation. I was going to go spend the summer up there before I went in the Army, graduated from high school, and we overheated on Jerome Ave in the Bronx. I'll never forget that, going through 95 through New York City, overheated on Jerome Ave. I can't remember if she had water in the back or not, but she had to pull over to the side, and I just let's just say there's not too many whites from Maine and Jerome Ave in the Bronx, if you know what I'm saying. And I can't remember how we got the water. So I had I just don't remember, but I think we had to walk to a store and ask for, like, she had a jug, I can't remember. But it's actually pretty funny because she was very, like, she wasn't panicked, she wasn't stressed, she was just very comfortable with the whole situation. I said, huh? And she had, it was my mom and her 2 other kids and me. And I just remember thinking, this is kind of nerve-wracking. And I had just read Thomas Wolfe's Bonfire of the Vanities before that. And I was like, oh boy. Anyway, but she was calm as a freaking clam, if that's the right word. I guess calm, cool as a fish, something like that. Got the water and moved on. It's crazy. She filled it up. All right, so what does that have to do? So I'm very nervous about debt. One time, when in 2007, we'd be getting all these credit card offers, home equity line offers, the whole thing, because that was when the real estate market never went down. It only went up. Just look at history, it just goes up. And I consolidated all my debt into, I think it was, maybe I had 1 or 2, but 0% for the life of the loan credit cards. And I think it was a 3% balance transfer fee. So I think I had like $15,000 on one, maybe $10,000 on another, or something like that. I can't remember. But I put my car loan on there, student loans, and I can't remember. We just had a bunch of debt. I consolidated all into these 0% for life of the loan credit cards. And if it's $15,000, was that $350 or something like that to transfer it over, but 0% for the life of the loan. I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. So I moved down to Texas in 2008, and I'm gradually paying the credit card and whatnot. One day in August, I get the bill, and I open it up. I said, whoa, I had like $300 in interest that month. I was like, what the hell? So I get on the horn with these clowns that say, there's a Chase, a Citibank Chase, one of those 2 banks. I said, whoa, what's up with this? I'm not late. My credit hasn't changed. What's going on? I thought it was a mistake. Oh, we reserve the right that in terms of times of tough financial situation, we can change rates on you. I said, what? I said, what's that about? There's no tough financial situation. I'm current. They said, oh, but actually what we're doing is anyone who's maxed out their limit, or I think it's like above 50% of the line amount they had outstanding debt, we're going to increase the rates. I was like, what are you talking about? So let's just say I had $14,000 remaining balance and I had a $15,000 line. So essentially I had $1,000 line of credit available, but I wasn't using it. I was just paying it down. I'm just using that for an example. But they said you need to have less than $7,500 in that case to keep your interest at 0%. I said, well, that's not what you guys said when you sent me the thing where I could get 0% for life of the loan. I said, I paid, $300, $400 to do the balance transfer. They're like, well, you can always, go to another company. So basically they wanted me to leave. They said essentially their thought process or their business decisions, because my line of credit was more than 50% of the outstanding balance, or my outstanding balance was more than 50% of the line of credit, I was a liability to them, and they could raise their interest rate to whatever the law allowed. And then they said, well, yeah, you don't have to stay here. You can always go to another bank. I said, what the hell? I was like, well, do I get my 3%? And they said, no. I said, so basically, it's a bait and switch. You lied to me. You said 0% for the life of the loan as long as I stay current. I was current. And now you're saying I can't do that anymore. And so now my payment, which I was paying like $200 a month or something like that, I wasn't paying much because the whole point was, 0% money is cheap money. I'll just pay the minimum and be done with it. Anyway, now my payment doubled. It went from $200 a month to $200 a month. The loan was just an interest or whatever it was. Oh yeah, sucks to be you. I'll never forget that. And so I scrambled, and there was no, I just ate it. I just had to eat it because no other banks were offering you 0%. And even though I had some equity in my home, no banks are offering in Texas. You can't, it's got to be 70% loan to value. They don't let you do equity lines if you don't have 30% equity, which we did not have. So I had all this money of equity in my home, couldn't access it. And now I got, because I didn't have 70%, because I had more than 70% loan of value, probably 75% loan of value, but still in a $315, let's say $300,000 house, that's, let's say 25%. That's $75,000 I had in equity, but I couldn't touch it. And so I just had to, we had to bite it. It's crazy, crazy. Anyway, so that's where I said I have this fury towards debt because of that. Now, I told you last week about going through my situation with stupid Chrysler, which I'll share with you tomorrow when I find if they had any luck on finding my $15,000. But that's the issue, man. When you go on debt, you are literally the slave to the lender. And the Bible talks about this. The Quran talks about this. Hell, I'm sure atheists talk about this. I don't know. But that's the issue. You owe, it's off to work you go. And if they change the terms, well, what are you going to do about it? I mean, literally, you owe them. What are you going to do? Well, they can't do that. Well, that's what you think. But the bank, they're looking to get you any way they can. And so my man Rene, he has no debt at all, none whatsoever, because he learned his lesson in 1998. 10 years later, I learned my lesson. Now, I still have debt, don't get me wrong. That big house you see behind me, that's got a heavy mortgage on there. I got a lot of equity in there, don't get me wrong, but I still got a big fat mortgage, which all the equity in the world doesn't do crap until I liquidate the house or I get 62 and I take reverse mortgage. I'm not taking a second mortgage on this sucker, I'll tell you that right now. I've been through that before, where USAA called in their equity lines of credit. But again, when you owe, this is the stuff you're dealing with. They call in their loans at the most inopportune time. So now all of a sudden I'm cash poor, and now all of a sudden my freaking cash flow goes up an extra $200, $250 a month because I have this interest I got to pay, which I didn't have before. That's why I say you got to watch that debt, man. Ugh. Anyway, so I'll share another video here in just a second about some other chats I've had. All right, thanks.